For nearly a decade, the world's most wanted man, Osama bin Laden, managed to hide in plain sight, tucked away in a large compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, a town just a short distance from a prestigious military academy. How did he evade capture for so long, especially in such a high-security area? The question of whether Pakistani authorities knew about his whereabouts has led to fierce debates, speculations, and even conspiracy theories. When U.S. Navy SEALs launched their secret raid in 2011, bringing an end to bin Laden's life, they not only uncovered his hiding place but also cast a spotlight on Pakistan. Some argue that it's impossible for a figure as prominent as bin Laden to live undetected without at least some level of official protection or oversight. Others insist that Pakistan's leaders were kept in the dark, just as the rest of the world was. This episode left many unanswered questions, with global attention focused on Pakistan's role, intended or unintended, in bin Laden's mysterious hiding years. Was there collusion? Or was bin Laden simply a ghost, managing to evade even the most watchful eyes? The truth behind these years remains a subject of intense controversy, inviting questions that many are still determined. Background and controversy, setting the stage. Bin Laden's Abbottabad compound. The compound where Osama bin Laden lived for years wasn't just any ordinary residence. Nestled in Abbottabad, a relatively quiet city in Pakistan, it stood out in a neighborhood surrounded by smaller, simpler homes. The compound was built in 2005, well after the world began actively pursuing bin Laden. And its location raised many eyebrows once his presence there was discovered. Abbottabad is home to the Pakistan Military Academy, the country's elite training institution for officers. Bin Laden's compound was only about a kilometer away from this highly secured, prestigious facility. The structure itself was built with privacy in mind. Surrounded by unusually high walls, some reaching 18 feet, it had limited visibility into the grounds. Barbed wire ran along the tops of these walls, and there were hardly any windows facing the outside. Inside, the compound had 3 floors, providing significant space for its residents while also allowing bin Laden a way to remain hidden. The building's 3rd floor, where bin Laden was often confined, had a terrace shielded by a high wall, effectively concealing anyone who might venture outside. Such design features seemed suspicious given Pakistan's ongoing conflict with militants and the high level of surveillance within the country. The compound didn't even have telephone or internet connections, likely an intentional decision to avoid detection. These precautions made it look less like a regular family home and more like a fortified structure. Perhaps one meant to protect its inhabitants from outside interference. All these factors make the compound's existence, and its location, even more remarkable. Given its proximity to a major military hub, it raised an unavoidable question. How could a building this unusual go unnoticed in such a secure area? Initial reactions and shock. When the U.S. Navy SEALs conducted their operation in May 2011, killing Osama bin Laden, the news quickly spread worldwide. People around the globe were stunned, not only because bin Laden was finally captured but because of where he was found. The idea that he was hiding in Pakistan, so close to a military academy, left many questioning how he could live there undetected for so long. It also sparked significant backlash within Pakistan itself, where officials faced harsh criticism both at home and abroad. Inside Pakistan, citizens expressed a range of emotions. Many were outraged that bin Laden was found so close to a military installation, feeling embarrassed and humiliated that such a high-profile figure had been hiding within their country. For some, this revelation suggested incompetence or lack of control within Pakistan's security apparatus. For others, it stirred anger toward the U.S. for carrying out a military operation on Pakistani soil without prior notification. This unilateral action by the United States led to debates within Pakistan about sovereignty and respect for its borders, adding yet another layer to the controversy. Globally, people wanted answers. Questions were raised about how Pakistan's intelligence and security agencies could overlook such a high-profile individual in a sensitive area. Western nations, especially the United States, began questioning Pakistan's loyalty in the global fight against terrorism. This wave of skepticism was reflected in international media, where Pakistan's reputation took a hit, and many called for a thorough investigation into how this could happen. Global accusations and investigations. The immediate reaction from the US and other countries was one of suspicion. After years of Pakistan positioning itself as a partner in the fight against terrorism, the discovery of bin Laden so close to a major military institution suggested to some that certain Pakistani officials may have known about his presence. These suspicions weren't limited to just Pakistan's intelligence services. Questions also arose about whether local police or even military personnel might have been aware of bin Laden's hiding spot. The US government expressed significant frustration. Given the billions of dollars in military aid Pakistan received annually from the US for counterterrorism efforts, finding bin Laden in such close quarters to a Pakistani military site led many American officials to believe that something was amiss. Various American lawmakers and officials openly speculated that bin Laden couldn't have stayed hidden without some level of complicity from within Pakistan. These suspicions led to a wave of diplomatic pressure, as the US demanded explanations and assurances from Pakistani leadership. This skepticism wasn't limited to the United States. Other countries involved in the global fight against terrorism also questioned how Pakistan could be so oblivious to bin Laden's presence. These doubts impacted Pakistan's international standing, with various allies and international organizations calling for in-depth investigations. Many governments demanded transparency from Pakistan, seeking answers to clarify whether the country's officials had knowingly harbored bin Laden or simply failed to detect his presence due to weak intelligence operations. In response, Pakistan initiated an investigation to address both domestic and international concerns. The Abbottabad Commission, led by a group of respected Pakistani officials, was tasked with looking into the circumstances that allowed bin Laden to reside in Abbottabad unnoticed.
This investigation aimed to provide clarity on whether Pakistani authorities were truly unaware of his location, or if there was any negligence involved. Despite these efforts, the Commission's findings left many unsatisfied. The report, which was later leaked to the public, concluded that a combination of incompetence, poor coordination among agencies, and intelligence lapses had allowed bin Laden to remain hidden. It did not provide concrete evidence of any collusion within Pakistan's government or military. However, the report did acknowledge failures on multiple levels, suggesting that the country's intelligence system had serious gaps that needed addressing. Ultimately, the raid on bin Laden's compound and the questions it raised have had lasting effects on Pakistan's relations with the US and other nations. For Pakistan, this period marked a diplomatic strain, with suspicions hanging over its government and security institutions. The Abbottabad incident continues to fuel debate and remains a sensitive issue within Pakistan and beyond. The questions of how much Pakistan knew and what more could have been done linger, impacting perceptions of the country's role in global security to this day. Theories and speculation. What did Pakistan know? After the discovery of Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad, numerous theories emerged, alleging that certain elements within Pakistan's government or military may have knowingly sheltered him. These theories stem from the simple fact that bin Laden's compound was located in close proximity to the Pakistan Military Academy, an area under heightened surveillance and security. The idea that one of the world's most wanted individuals could live undetected in this area for years struck many as highly improbable without some form of insider assistance. Some declassified documents and statements from US officials seemed to fuel these suspicions. Following bin Laden's capture, a few reports emerged suggesting that American intelligence had long suspected. Some individuals within Pakistan's military or intelligence services might have been aware of bin Laden's location. Although these documents didn't provide concrete evidence, they did hint at possible complicity or, at the very least, a severe oversight. Some former US officials went as far as suggesting that certain factions within Pakistan's intelligence agency, the ISI, Inter-Services Intelligence, might have seen an advantage in keeping bin Laden hidden rather than capturing him outright. These theories were not without detractors, and many officials acknowledged that hard proof was lacking. But they were based on long-standing US suspicions about parts of Pakistan's intelligence network, where some members might hold sympathies toward extremist groups or see them as strategic assets. This suspicion was not new. For years, the US had questioned Pakistan's sincerity in its commitment to fighting terrorism, especially given that Pakistan had occasionally been accused of selectively targeting only certain terrorist groups, while allegedly turning a blind eye to others. Adding to the speculation were statements from various international analysts and commentators. Many pointed to the inconsistencies in Pakistan's counterterrorism operations and the sheer implausibility of bin Laden's location going unnoticed. High-level discussions among diplomats and security experts often pondered the possible motivations behind Pakistan's alleged complicity. Some suggested that if Pakistan had indeed known of bin Laden's whereabouts, it might have been to avoid political fallout or maintain leverage over regional alliances. However, in the absence of hard evidence, these remain theories and speculations rather than established facts. Pakistan's denial and the lack of evidence. In response to these allegations, Pakistan consistently and firmly denied any knowledge of bin Laden's presence in Abbottabad. Pakistani officials, from government representatives to military leaders, asserted that they had no prior knowledge of bin Laden's hideout and that his presence was just as shocking to them as it was to the world. Pakistan maintained that they had been actively cooperating with the U.S. on counterterrorism for years, capturing and turning over numerous militants, and that they would have taken similar action if they had known about bin Laden's presence. From Pakistan's perspective, the accusations seemed baseless and damaging to their national reputation. Officials often cited the lack of concrete evidence linking the state or any known officials to a deliberate sheltering of bin Laden. Despite multiple inquiries and investigations, both domestically and internationally, no substantial evidence was ever found to support the theory that Pakistan's government or military had directly aided bin Laden. The Abbottabad Commission, Pakistan's own inquiry into the matter, found no proof of state complicity. Instead, it pointed to intelligence and security lapses that allowed bin Laden to reside undetected, rather than any act of collusion. Pakistani officials repeatedly stated that while the intelligence network may have missed bin Laden's presence due to lapses, the notion of state-sponsored protection was unwarranted. Statements from senior government figures stressed that Pakistan had itself suffered from terrorism, with thousands of Pakistani lives lost in attacks linked to extremist organizations. They argued that their country's own sacrifices in the war on terror were proof of their commitment to fighting terrorism, not sheltering it. Given the absence of concrete evidence linking Pakistani officials directly to bin Laden, the international community largely accepted Pakistan's denials, although some suspicions lingered. Despite the government's efforts to clarify its position, the accusations and doubts have remained a sensitive topic within Pakistan. The lack of concrete evidence didn't prevent rumors from circulating both domestically and internationally. Many Pakistanis felt frustrated, believing that their country was unfairly targeted in global discussions, and pointed out that intelligence lapses were not unique to Pakistan. Still, the shadow of suspicion persisted, creating a lasting impact on the country's image abroad. Impact on U.S.-Pakistan relations. The discovery of bin Laden's presence in Abbottabad placed a strain on U.S.-Pakistan relations, sparking heated debates in both countries about the level of trust, cooperation, and transparency between them. For years, Pakistan had been considered a key U.S. ally in the fight against terrorism, receiving billions in military aid and support. But the events of May 2011 made many in the U.S. question the wisdom of this relationship and the effectiveness of Pakistan's counterterrorism commitments. One of the most immediate impacts was a shift in U.S. military aid to Pakistan. In the years following the raid, there was significant pressure from American lawmakers to reduce financial support, arguing that Pakistan might not be fully committed to U.S. security interests. Some members of Congress demanded a halt to aid, citing concerns that American tax dollars were potentially supporting a country where top terrorists could hide undetected. Although military aid continued, it was subject to increased scrutiny, and some funds were redirected or reduced over time, reflecting a more cautious approach by the U.S.
Public trust in the U.S.-Pakistan partnership was also damaged. Many Americans felt betrayed by the discovery, believing that Pakistan's commitment to anti-terrorism efforts had been questionable all along. This sentiment was not limited to politicians, it also affected public opinion, with many Americans doubting Pakistan's sincerity in its counterterrorism stance. Media coverage often portrayed Pakistan as a dubious ally, creating lasting skepticism that influenced public discourse and diplomatic policies. The incident also sparked a broader discussion about intelligence sharing failures between the US and Pakistan. Both countries had a complex relationship when it came to intelligence, with each side occasionally harboring suspicions about the other's intentions. In the wake of the Abbottabad raid, American officials openly questioned the effectiveness of intelligence collaboration, noting that despite extensive communication channels, critical information had seemingly been missed. For Pakistan, the raid was a painful reminder of the risks of intelligence gaps, as it exposed vulnerabilities in their own national security and strained their diplomatic standing. Despite the difficulties, both countries recognized the need to maintain their partnership, given the strategic importance of Pakistan in regional security. While the Abbottabad incident introduced new complications, it also underscored the need for more transparent communication and a re-evaluation of mutual interests. In the years that followed, the US and Pakistan attempted to rebuild trust, though with a more cautious approach, keeping in mind the lessons learned from this turbulent chapter in their relationship. In the end, the presence of Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad remains a sensitive issue that continues to influence US-Pakistan relations. While formal ties between the two countries have endured, the lingering questions about what Pakistan knew, or didn't know, cast a long shadow. This episode not only brought significant changes in the diplomatic landscape but also served as a reminder of the complexities that arise in international alliances, particularly when global security and trust are at stake. Conclusion and lingering questions. The years Osama bin Laden spent in Abbottabad continue to stir debate and spark questions. The location of his hideout, right under the noses of Pakistan's military academy and within a secure neighborhood, raises significant doubts. Many wonder if bin Laden received protection from certain officials or if his presence was simply a massive intelligence failure. These questions linger in the minds of people around the world, with theories and speculation filling the gaps where concrete answers are lacking. For some, the idea that he lived in such a secure area without detection remains implausible. For others, it underscores the possibility of lapses in Pakistan's complex security network, rather than deliberate sheltering. The global response to bin Laden's discovery in Pakistan led to diplomatic strain and a reconsideration of international trust. US-Pakistan relations were heavily impacted, with growing skepticism in the United States about Pakistan's role in anti-terrorism efforts. The years since have seen shifts in how the two countries cooperate, communicate, and share intelligence. While both nations continue to work together on matters of security, the impact of bin Laden's residence in Abbottabad is a shadow that still affects their relationship. Despite inquiries and investigations, a definitive answer to the question of Pakistani involvement remains elusive. Pakistani officials have repeatedly denied any knowledge of bin Laden's presence, and no conclusive evidence has surfaced to prove otherwise. Yet the public remains divided. Some accept Pakistan's official stance, while others believe there may have been, at the very least, individuals who knew more than they admitted. Whether his stay was known and overlooked or entirely hidden from authorities, the incident has left a lasting mark on how Pakistan's security and intelligence capabilities are perceived globally. The Abbottabad chapter in bin Laden's life raises broader issues beyond just the question of knowledge or protection. It highlights the challenges countries face in tracking high-profile targets and underscores the difficulties of international partnerships in a post-9/11 world. The tensions, suspicions, and questions of trust that emerged from this event are not easily resolved. They serve as a reminder of the complex layers of international relations, where alliances are built on shared interests but can be tested by issues of accountability and security. As the world reflects on the events surrounding bin Laden's years in Abbottabad, one thing is clear. The debate over what Pakistan knew, or didn't know, will likely persist for years to come. The lessons from this period continue to shape policy decisions, diplomatic discussions, and the strategies used in the global fight against terrorism. These lingering questions, without concrete answers, remind us of the challenges in untangling complex geopolitical situations. Thanks for watching. For more intriguing stories and history, make sure to subscribe and tap the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next.